My name is Paul Batten. I work for Proudfoot Consulting. This morning you heard some comments around the future of mining, a lot of which involve talking about people. And I want to talk about people and transforming people's behavior. Title is Soft Skills for Hard Results. So we've been working for a couple of years at the Oyu Tolgoi underground expansion project in Mongolia. And what we were hired to do there was to transform the way people cooperate, collaborate, and work together to keep them on schedule, essentially. I don't know how long it's required to keep the forward-looking statement on the screen, but it's in the presentation, so. So let's talk a little bit about the client and the situation first. So it's a world-class copper deposit. It's been operating as an open pit mine for about 7 years, but the future of the mine is underground, and it's going to be a 50-year plus operation underground. The underground expansion project is a 6-year project that budgeted at a capital cost of $5.4 billion. And I'd like to draw your attention to the stats blue box there. So the maximum spend rate projected during that time is $3 million a day. And they figured out that if it's on the critical path and it's late, it's going to have an impact on the NPV of the project of about $2 million a day, every day it's late. So hence the reason they want to keep it on schedule. So the site has a few challenges. It's remote, a long ways away from the capital and any other major city. It's very deep, and it's complex. And one of the things that makes it complex is that you have about 20 different entities working together at the same time, all competing for equipment, space, slick line, you name it. Everybody has to get their people underground in the morning and get them back up at the end of the shift and so on. Not to mention the fact that there's about 14,000 people on site right now, and just over 50% of them will be on site at any given time. So there's competition for beds, seats on the plane to get to site, buses, and the kitchen. If you want to go to breakfast, go early. Yeah. Anyway, the other thing is there's quite a mixture of cultures. So Oyu Tolgoi is very focused on making sure that local people are employed there. So about 96% of the people that are working there are Mongolian. But of the other 4%, you got Australians, not surprisingly, because that's the Rio Tinto biggest group. Then you got Canadians as the second largest group. Then you got South Africans. And if you'll allow me, I'll tell you a very short anecdote. You have 3 mining engineers looking at a mining drawing at Oyu Tolgoi. One of them is an Australian, one is a Canadian, and one is a South African. And the Canadian says, "Look, I'm very sorry, but I believe that there's an error on the drawing." And the Australian says, "Look, mate, there's an error on the drawing. We better correct that right away." And the South African guy goes, "Lies! Somebody's lying to me." So you have to make all those cultures work, and you have to make all those cultures work with the Mongolian culture. Anyway, that's why it's complex. So in John's remarks this morning, he talked a little bit about some of the stuff that we're doing over there. I just want to go quickly through the project evolution. I won't spend too much time on the first couple of things, which is the integrated planning process and the MOS, the management operating system. But essentially, when you have 20 different entities all competing for time and space and materials and equipment, you have chaos. So they needed a function to come in and say, everybody present your plan, and somebody looked at that plan for constraints and conflicts and said, here's your modified plan. And the prioritization was based on what was the best for the project today, so that we're always making the best overall project to bring this $5.4 billion monster in the time frame that was allotted. The management operating system, that was designed to identify variances against plan and take constructive corrective action quickly. So I won't spend too much time on it, but you can see from the drawing here. The plan comes in from Brisbane, and it's a quarterly plan. So 3 months worth of mining. And then on site, they break it into monthly, and the Tech Services Department breaks it into monthly and weekly plans. And then it goes, it basically goes underground for execution. And once it gets executed, it goes back up the chain for reporting, and we look at what are the variants that happened today, this week, this month, on the quarter, which ones are priority issues, what caused them, and that may involve a root cause analysis, and what do we do about it. And so essentially, it's a variance detecting and reporting system that generates action plans. Okay? So those two things were installed as tools, and that helped drive certain behaviors. But one of the things that they found was the underground mine manager found that they weren't using especially the MOS, they weren't using it properly for variance detection and taking action. So he needed a behavioral change, especially in his direct reports. Now in Oyu Tolgoi they have 5 departments under the mining department, and he wanted each one of those managers to demonstrate and model active variance management. So I'll spend a little bit more time talking about that, and a little bit of time talking about accountability. So essentially what Proudfoot was doing was going in and working with each of those 5 department managers and defining what are the behaviors we need from you in order to actively manage variances in an appropriate manner. And don't forget, every day of slippage on the schedule is $2 million of NPV, right? So it was very important. So the underground mine manager said, I need a culture of schedule compliance based on active variance management. Please, help my people do this. Okay? What we did is we defined 6 requirements. So very quickly, there must be a functioning MOS in your area if you're a manager, and if it's not functioning, it's your responsibility to make sure it functions. So continuous improvement on that. The manager must actually check what's coming out of the MOS and detect those variances, and then he must generate actions associated with that. And that's not necessarily actions that he's going to do himself, he can delegate, right? Then there has to be some kind of active follow-up on actions, because as you can imagine, a $5.4 billion project can generate lots of variances and lots of actions, right? And sometimes it's not obvious what you need to do about it, so you do a root cause analysis, you figure out what's behind it, and then you generate your actions around that. And then you have a sustainment kind of piece, so MOS continuous improvement process that makes sure that what I have working in my area is appropriate and continues to be appropriate in my area. So the one that we've put here, this is the actual result from the underground development manager. So this is the guy that actually has to drive the meters, okay? And you know, for me, that's a key guy. And you can see the evolution over time of his behavior and obviously it's what we want is to get out to all 5s on all of the axes. Anyway, that was the main part of what we got them doing. So in order to do that, Proudfoot had assigned an advisor, quotation mark, to each one of the departmental managers. And we went and we looked at, you know, is that meeting effective? Did they make their meters? Why didn't they make their meters? Who's capturing that? And then go to the manager and say, hey, have you looked at this? What do you think you should do about that? Right. And sometimes it's, oh, I have to go talk to my colleague in the other department, and sometimes it is, George promised that he would deliver that and he didn't deliver it, so you got to go have a holding to account talk. Okay? It could be any of that. But this is all about managing people. Just a couple of words around alignment and effective holding to account. And this is kind of like my second message. The first thing is, how do you get people to want to be successful as a group? Okay? So this thing, if anybody understands what this is telling you, I think, would you be worried if you were the mine underground manager? Right? So the blasting success rate on a daily basis is very low. Okay, so you can say, well, on a weekly basis, it's higher than that. Well, yes, it is. But in order for the mine manager to feel like things are under control, he wants to see a blast on the day that it was scheduled, or the shift that it was scheduled. So in order to create a burning platform, this graph is up on a huge monitor, big TV screen, right as you enter the front door of the workplace. Right? You can't escape it. It's looking at you and going, 18% compliance, you know? Anyway, so that's one of the ways we got alignment. The other way is cascading business reviews, and that's a fancy word that the client uses internally, but essentially what it means is, what meetings do we have? What do we discuss in those meetings? How frequently do we have them? Who's in them? And what's the point? What's the purpose of them? And they wanted us to design a system of meetings by level of work, you know, GM, manager, area manager, et cetera, so that people would have the interactions necessary to be able to pick up and deal with variances. So this alignment piece came up very, very recently. It became obvious after we started getting people to use the MOS that we had other issues to deal with. And the last piece which became apparent is the effective holding to account. So by that, does the company have a culture that says if somebody fails to deliver, that you do something proactive about it in an effective way? So what's the definition of effective? Well, let's define it by ineffective. Ineffective is you aggressively attack the person who failed to deliver, and he may sabotage you next time, or he may leave, or you may be his enemy, or whatever. Anyway, it's a relationship damaging kind of conversation. On the other extreme, you have conflict avoidance, right? It's all right, mate. Right? We'll get her next time, which doesn't get you any. So effective dealing with failure and holding to account is somewhere in between those two things. And that is a person-to-person, hands-on coaching activity that's just starting. Anyway, that's the main part of what I wanted to talk about. They like it. Hamta, X-A-M-T-D-A, is a Mongolian word. The closest I can come to it is teamwork. So they have an annual award on Oyatolgai site for the best project that leads to teamwork. And this project won it this year, sorry. And after it won it, it got noticed, it got on the radar screen for the Rio Tinto global recognition for the President's Groundbreaking Award for Innovation. So interestingly, out of the 3 projects that get nominated every year, only one was about humans, and the other 2 were about technical stuff. But the Oyatolgai one got nominated as a human innovation. Okay. So the guy that manages Proudfoot on site was asked to go to the Coppers and Diamonds Exco and defend the nomination for the President's Award. And this is a slide I took out of his presentation. So he thinks the soft stuff gets you hard results. Anyway, that's the end of my pitch on that. Nobody rang the 10-minute bell, so do I have to keep talking?